It's the dark side of motivation. Why getting roughed up might be the best thing to ever happen to you. We talk about it now. Hello, and here we go. Welcome to the 4th episode of The Geoff Wilson Show. I have a secret that I need to share. The hate accounts, the critics that come after me, they are what's making me push harder than ever right now. There is no greater motivator for me than having a chip on my shoulder. Now, I'm not saying that I like the critics. I don't, especially when they twist facts or make up lies, as has been done plenty recently. But every punch they throw my way is additional motivation to get out of bed early, to work late, and to hustle my way to the top. When I'm investing in startups, I love founders who have something to prove to the world. Maybe they quit their corporate job with a stifling boss, and they now want to stick it to them by showing them they can achieve big things on their own. Or maybe they grew up as the unpopular kid without much money, and they want to self-create the lifestyle that they were always jealous of. If I'm going to bet on somebody making it big, give me the person who has their back against the wall and is ready to fight like hell for what they dream to accomplish. That's deep motivation that can't be fostered any other way. There's been plenty of times in the sports card investor story and in my personal story where this type of motivation has gotten me to the next level. How that happened and how to make it work for you is what we're going to dive into today.
All right. Juicy episode time.
You excited for this one?
Yes, because this is one of the ones that we've talked about doing for a bit. So I feel like we're going to get saucy. We're going to say some things. We're going to learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah. Let's dive in. It's going to be a fun episode, right?
You're talking a lot about it's going to be a personal episode for you.
It's going to be a personal episode, but it's good. But you know what? I hope it's an episode where some of these things are relatable to others, and I hope that people can find motivation within their own life to go achieve great things. And sometimes those motivations can come from really rough experiences.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, those are the best motivators.
Yes. So you started with talking about a chip on your shoulder. Has holding a chip and using a chip as motivation always sort of been something in your life?
Yeah. Okay. It really has been. Yeah, since the very beginning. So this goes back to like elementary school. Like I remember I was a nerd. Like I was into my computers. I was into my video games. I was just like kind of doing my thing.
Which video games?
I was never, oh my God. I was like crazy. I mean, this was back in Nintendo days. I've been starting with the Atari 2600. That's like how old. But I remember when the first Nintendo Entertainment System I got when I think I was in 2nd grade. And I mean, that was just like a life-changing development.
That was life-changing to you?
For me, it was the sports games. So I love sports. I was crazy about sports growing up. I was crazy about sports cards. And I was crazy about sports video games. I sucked at sports. I was not good. You know, I played youth sports and I was horrible. I was always the kid that the coach never wanted to put in because, you know.
The last picked for kickball.
I was the last pick. I was always the last pick. And so, but I was really good at sports video games. So, you know, I had that moment. But oh yeah, Tecmo Bowl, RBI baseball, baseball stars. I spent more hours of my life. Unbelievable amounts of time invested into those types of video games.
But did you have a lot of other kids like you hanging around you that so you formed a little pocket, square.
With other nerds.
Yeah, with other
we were
nerds.
Yeah.
You would call yourself a nerd?
No. But
this is so contradictory. You just said, were you a nerd or were you not a nerd?
Well, here's what's interesting.
Okay.
As an adult, I'm proud of being a nerd as a kid. And here's what's really fascinating. I've gotten to know, you know, through the success that we've had as a sports card investor and the content and everything, I've gotten to know a lot of famous people, like people who have gone on to do incredible things in their careers, some with very big, elevated social profiles, some who are looked up to by tens of millions of people as like, you know, like in some cases, like purveyors of cool. They're nerds. Today, to this day, they're like, and they were nerds when they were kids.
Why do you think that is? Is it maybe just because people who maybe didn't necessarily get things easy in high school had to work a little bit harder to get them, had to figure out different ways to accomplish what they wanted, or, you know, they had a harder time, so they used the struggle? I mean, is that what, you know, when we originally started talking about the chip on your shoulder, is that sort of where that comes from?
That's definitely part of it. You know, part of it, it's an interesting question, right? I think part of it might be that being really intelligent, being smart, being passionate about things and diving deep into things, those traits are rewarded as an adult. Those traits are not looked at as cool or favorable when you're a kid. If you're the kid who, like, you know, gets super into computers or computer programming, or like becomes a bookworm and gets like, just, you know, gets passionate about literature or gets passionate about writing or gets passionate, you're a loser in middle school. Like, you know, if you're like, you're a loser, because the cool kids are the ones that are playing sports and that are, you know, drinking beers, you know, on
the hierarchy of schools.
Yeah, those are the cool kids, right? So you're not, if you're passionate and go hard into something, you're not cool then. But later in life, it all flips. Like, later in life, intelligence is rewarded, you know, passion is rewarded, going deep in one particular area is rewarded, right? I mean, I was into sports cards as a kid. I enjoyed doing them. I don't think any girl thought they were cool. Well, truthfully, girls don't really think they're cool today either. But girls, girls do think it's cool that, like, I'm a content creator and a YouTuber, you know, and those types of things, right? Like, so what I was passionate about it as a kid, like, didn't really get me anywhere. And then, but you get passionate about something as an adult, and people look at it differently. People perceive it differently. So just, you know, the changing of, like, what people consider successful over time, that's part of it. But a big part of it is the chip on your shoulder thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's the kids that are smart but are not respected when they're little, who get picked on. Like, I got picked on a lot. Like, they're the jocks at my school. Like, and this is even back to, like, middle school. Mm-hmm. Like, the jocks, like, they picked on me. Like, they, you know, like, I got actively, like, you know, picked on, like, got in some fights and got beat up a few times. And
hold, please. You got into fights?
Yeah.
Geoff Wilson.
Yeah. Got into some kids that were like a couple grades older than me, who just, I don't know, they were just jerks. They just picked on me. They just, you know, and even some kids in my grade would mess with me, but the older kids were the ones who would actually, like, physically mess with the kids in my grade. Like, I was decently sized. I could at least kind of keep up.
Carry yourself, yeah.
I could carry myself, you know, but, like, you know, when I'm in, like, you know, 5th or 6th grade and you got some 8th graders that are coming after you, you know, it's a little hard. So yeah, I got picked on. You know what? But I used, like, chip on the shoulder. Like, chip on the shoulder. It was all a chip on the shoulder. And you know, the crazy thing is, like, to this day, like, I still occasionally think about that.
Really?
Like, oh yeah, I still occasionally think about it. I mean, I'm.
Is it because you're proud of, like? Well, I mean, you should be proud of where you're at. Yes. But I mean, like, thinking about your inner child, like, you're representing that kid now as an adult. I mean, there's got to be some reward factor there.
Yes, like, it's a strong motivator, and I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, jealousy. We'll talk a little more about this later. Like, jealousy is a bad thing, but using competition or a rival or an enemy as motivation, I think that actually can be one of the most powerful things in the world. There's nothing more powerful than being comfortable in your own skin, right?
Yeah.
Like, in building self-confidence. And that's an interesting thing too, because when you're a kid, if you are not part of the cool crowd, if you are on the outside looking in, you struggle with self-confidence. Like, that's a self-confidence killer for kids, right? Mm-hmm. That if they're like, they don't feel good enough, they don't feel accepted enough, they don't feel pretty enough or cool enough or whatever it is, like, that's a self-confidence killer. And so you're kind of wanting to, like, rectify that. Like, you know, like, you kind of want to, like, try to build and be like, man, how do I make myself better in social situations? And gosh, you know, it's so, this is so, like, I follow these different business leaders on Instagram, and one of them the other day, who's very, like, you know, big following, famous business leader, she was posting about, she's like, I'm actually a very socially awkward person. I'm like very socially awkward. And she's like, I had to teach myself
Yep.
how not to be awkward in social situations. And it completely resonated with me because I'm like, I kind of had to do the same. But you know what? Because I think you had those experiences, because I had those experiences as a kid and I always wanted to be, you know, cool and accepted and all that kind of stuff, you work hard to get it. So it's a little bit the chip on the shoulder thing. It's like you actually work hard to get what you want. And part of what you want is social acceptance and the, you know, the ability to, you know, feel like you're part of the circle, right? And so I think the people who like, maybe it's the people who that doesn't come easy to as kids, who are the people that then have the opportunity to really, you know, achieve something in that area as adults because they actively apply themselves and work hard at it because they know they didn't get it easily, right?
Right. Well, so let's talk about like sort of how you were raised, because you do come from a, you know, your mom was a lawyer. You do come from a very prominent family. And some people would say that you had, quote unquote, would have had it easy growing up. So then how do you sort of combat that narrative with the amount of work that you've put in since you were young? Because I mean, you started your first business at what age?
Yeah, in high school. Yeah, I started when I was 15 years old. I started a computer store at a computer store nerd. I started a computer store at a shopping mall in Sarasota, Florida. I did because once again, I was more interested in like business and entrepreneurship and computers, and I just had this fuel. Of course, that's not the cool thing when you're 15 years old, right?
No.
But that's what I did. I started the store, and it actually turned into kind of a cool thing because we got a lot of media coverage, and that was actually interesting. One of my proudest moments in high school was I got my senior class voted me most likely to succeed when I was actually super thrilled with that because I was, I was never anybody who, people paid a whole lot of attention to. But once I started the computer store, when it actually flipped was I started the computer store and it got big media publicity. It got written up on a big article on the front page of the newspaper, Sunday newspaper. That was when people cared about newspapers. We had a TV station. I was in Sarasota, Florida. We had a TV station from Tampa come down, and they asked the school for permission if they could follow me around throughout the school day to do like a feature story. So literally, like, I'm in class and there's a TV crew that's
Look at
like
you little movie
filming
star.
me. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, this is kind of cool now.
Yeah.
That was kind of neat. And then I got voted most likely to succeed, I think, as a result of all of that. And that was cool. That was like a little bit of a validator. I was never going to get voted most popular. I was never going to get voted best looking or best dressed. But you know what? I'm real happy with most likely to succeed.
Now, but regarding that, though, when you started your business, did your parents help you to get started? So like in that traverse, again, when we're talking about people who have maybe a better opportunity to start up a business or to, get a certain career in. I mean, they call them Nepo babies now, especially it's a huge trending term in the acting world. There's a lot of actors who automatically get, roles and have to internally feel like they've got to prove themselves because, their father was like Robert De Niro or something like that.
That's a hard thing. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So to answer your question, yes, I came from a really well-off family, right? We had a good family environment, everything I could ask for as a kid. My parents gave me a lot of freedom. They actually didn't get very involved when I started my high school business or anything like that. They were supportive of it, but they didn't do anything really hands-on to help. They kind of let me do my own thing quite a bit, but I certainly had a good environment, which, it's interesting thinking about the environments in which people grow up, because on one hand, I think economic mobility is a massive problem in our country, and economic mobility is people being able to find the way out of the economic situation in which they started their life. Here in Atlanta, where we've got a huge diversity of neighborhoods and a huge population of minorities, African Americans, giant population, economic mobility is a massive problem. There's some crazy statistic that is something like, if you are born in certain zip codes in Atlanta, the most impoverished zip codes in the city of Atlanta, if you are born in one of those zip codes, there is a 95% chance that you will be below the poverty line as an adult. As an adult. 30 years later, there's a 95% chance you will be below the poverty line simply based on the zip code that you were born in being a poor zip code. That's a big problem. Economic mobility is a big problem. On the other hand, kids trust fund babies, kids that come from a lot of wealth and a lot of money, that can be the opposite problem, right? Those kids can mail it in and be lazy.
Well, where's the motivation,
Yeah. And honestly, that's something that I worry about with my own kids. And I don't totally know how you fix that. Like, in my example, I did come from a pretty well-off family, but I just always felt like I had something to prove. I've worked tremendously hard my entire life and have really tried to self-create everything that I've created. I just had some motivation to do it. And I don't know if it was because, maybe I wasn't the popular kid in school or whatever it was. I had that chip on my shoulder the whole time through. I need my kids to have that.
Yeah.
And it's tough, right? Because they're living a very privileged life right now. Like, I've got 3 kids and it's an extremely privileged life. Like, we take them on all the vacations and all the nice places, and we stay in the nice hotels, and it's a very privileged life. And so how do you build that desire into them? And
how do you build the chip?
I don't totally know. What I will say is that my oldest son, Reeves, naturally has some of it. Like, he's naturally got some get up and go to him. How will that translate? I don't know. One thing about him is he is one of the popular kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He is the kid who's the quarterback on the football team. He is good looking. He does have the little 12-year-old girls gossiping about him in the corner, which is, by the way, really funny because he still right now is not very interested in girls, but the girls are all interested in him. So that's kind of funny to watch that dynamic take place. But you can tell he's like, kind of the popular guy, and but he seems to still be inherently motivated. I have really enjoyed getting him into cards. I'm a big believer, as you know, that cards are a wonderful training ground for kids. This is, me being in cards as a kid taught me buying, selling, negotiation, trading, finance a little bit of entrepreneurship, a little bit of hustle, being on my feet, having to talk to others, communicate to others, talk to dealers, talk to others. A lot of great things there. Getting him into cards has definitely awoken something in him. And so that's been pretty cool. And, he's got his own YouTube too. And I really love that. I've encouraged that because I also feel like that teaches you public speaking, stage presence, thinking on your feet, being able to communicate well about what you're doing, public awareness, a lot of really good things too. That can be a whole nother episode about how I think that the people who like kids these days, they just want to be YouTubers. I think that's a crazy point of view.
Whose voice is this?
It's all the old men. It's all my friends, all these damn kids. The surveys say that, kids these days would rather be an astronaut than a YouTuber. Yeah, great. They should rather be, or no, I'm sorry, the reverse, right?
YouTuber than an astronaut.
The studies say they'd rather be a YouTuber than an astronaut, right? I'm all for it. We'll talk about that later.
Content's hard work.
No, I mean, there's so many facets that go into it, like your ability to market, your ability to speak, your ability to be convincing to an audience, to think on your feet, to talk to others. There's so many things that go into it that, in my opinion, actually really translate well to the business world or to just about any other thing you're going to do in your life. That's a whole nother conversation. But I'm happy that he's in cards, and that seems to have kind of, woken something up with him. I want him and I want my other kids to fail at certain things. I want them to fail. I want Reeves to get bloodied in some car deals, right? Not necessarily bloodied in real life, but I want him to get I want him to make some bad car deals. I want him to get ripped off. I want him to, screw some things up, right? I want him to throw 4 interceptions in a football game and feel it.
These are some very intense things that you are wanting from him.
Because I want him to go through adversity.
Yeah.
I want my kids to not live perfect lives, because I feel like if you live a perfect childhood, where's that chip on your shoulder? And it comes back. You need that chip on your shoulder, in my opinion. That's such a key thing. At least it's been such a key thing in my life to always have that chip on my shoulder.
So let's revert this back to a sports card investor. I mean, we just talked about Reeves and his buying and his selling. When we talk about chips on the shoulder, I know we've talked about motivational circumstances, how people grow up, how they interact, if they're socially awkward, those types of things. I know we said we were going to talk about rivals, but I think we should talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Other people, inherently, you're going to come into conflict with people who just don't like you.
Yep.
And it may be for, a particular reason, like an instance that happened, or it's just people that just generally don't like you because they just decided they don't like you. So how can, because we all have that, no matter if you are the most liked person in the room, there's going to be one person there that probably doesn't like you.
Yeah. Or a lot of people there.
Or a lot of people.
We've seen that over the last, it's crazy. That element of it's really interesting. That's something that, as I've learned, every person who gains a large following in any field, right? They're automatically going to have detractors. It's a weird phenomenon. I don't know why it is that way, but it's Mark Cuban actually had an incredible quote where he said, it was on Shark Tank one night. I love Shark Tank. On Shark Tank
I know.
One night,
I'm well aware you like Shark Tank.
He was telling one of the people who was presenting, he said, when you're on your way up, everybody is clapping for you. Everybody is applauding you on your way up. But then all of a sudden, you start to reach the top of the mountain, and then all of a sudden, a lot of those people who were applauding for you are now throwing stones at you and trying to knock you off the mountain. I don't know why the world works that way, but it works that way. That's a weird thing. It's an odd thing. But yeah, so obviously we've had our fair circumstance of that, but yeah, there have been rivalries.
Yes.
Throughout. And so a couple thoughts here. So first of all,
this is getting deep. Let's go.
First of all, I am generally under the belief that you should not worry about your competition, that you should focus on your own road ahead, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm generally under that belief. I think a lot of people obsess about their competition or obsess about what other people are doing. Spending too much time and focus on anything else that's happening beyond your 4 walls is just a waste of time. Control what you can control. Control what you can control, and don't worry about the other stuff. That said, my one exception would be that if there's somebody or something or another company or another person that you're looking at that you in your own mind can kind of form a rivalry with, that sometimes can be a great motivator. I don't want you to obsess over them. I don't want you to care that much about what you're doing. But if you want to measure yourself against them specifically for the purpose of motivation, I think that's okay. Not jealousy.
Right.
Not jealousy. Don't get jealous of other people. Do your thing. But if you want to use somebody else to benchmark and you want to use that as motivation to try to scoot by them, I think that's fine.
What would you suggest for anybody that's wanting to have a motivational push, but have a figure or a key point behind that, but it's not a person?
Yeah, it could be. It can really be anything. Like for some people, I know some people do mood boards or not. I shouldn't say mood boards. They do these inspiration boards where they'll take photos of things they want, like a dream car or a, vacation to the, picture of beautiful scenery in Hawaii or whatever. And that will become their motivator. It's like they need to visualize, I'm going to hustle every day because I want to be able to buy a $10 million mansion. And so a picture of a $10 million mansion or something like that could be it for them. And again, the key is don't get jealous, don't obsess, use it for motivation. And that's a fine line because some people end up getting jealous of what other people have. The difference is looking at what other people have or what they've accomplished, and then not taking action on your own, not using it to take action on your own, that's jealousy. But looking at what other people have accomplished and then that revving you up to want to do more, that's motivation. That can be incredibly powerful.
That's a neat way to look at that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go into our bit segment.
Okay.
We're gonna do something a little bit different because I know that you like fruity drinks. I know you like.
Oh, we're switching it up. This is good. We're going from pretty serious conversation there about a lot of things. We're now talking about fruity drinks.
Why not?
I like it. This is a good way to end the show. This is a good way to end the show.
You know what? This is a motivator now.
Well, actually, this is a good motivator
for fruity drinks.
Yes, it is a good motivator. I like it.
All right, so I'm gonna give you a fruity drink, and I would like for you to compare that to football teams.
Okay. Let's do it. Let's go.
And I'm gonna switch it up on the order too. So let's do a Moscow Mule.
A Moscow Mule.
Which is one of my favorites.
Okay, so I like Moscow Mules too. A Moscow Mule is the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, explain.
Okay. It was a really trendy drink a few years ago. The Moscow Mule was it became very popular quickly. Every bar had copper mugs. Remember, there was this whole rage. All of a sudden, Moscow Mules were at the top of every cocktail menu. Copper mugs were hanging from the racks of all the bars across the country. Everyone was all in on a mule. It was the coolest thing until it wasn't. And there's still people that drink Moscow Mules today, but it no longer gets the attention. Bars don't carry the copper mugs the way that they used to. Now you probably get it in just an ordinary glass. Nobody is paying as much attention to the Moscow Mule. They're not as excited about it, just like the Buffalo Bills.
You know what? We should all care more about Moscow Mules. I'm not a Bills fan, but I guess if that correlates, it correlates.
I mean, the Bills were the trendy pick going into last NFL season, and now they've fallen off because their reputation is they can't win the big game. So they're no longer the trendy team.
Oh my Lord. All right, so let's do a pina colada.
Oh, a pina colada.
Pina colada.
A pina colada is the Dallas Cowboys. A pina colada is a overly sweet, syrupy, artificial drink in most cases.
Ooh, punches being thrown.
That is lacking punch. The pina coladas that they make out of that Island Oasis mix, with the cheap, it's basically corn syrup. It's artificial coconut corn syrupy, blended with some ice, a little bit of rum. That ain't it. Now, a real pina colada. If you're going to do a pina colada, you got to add some dark rum to the top. You need a floater. You need a kick. I need my pina coladas to have a kick. And you know what the Dallas Cowboys are lacking?
A kick.
They got no kick. They got all this sweetness, everybody, it's the Cowboys. Everyone wants to talk about the Cowboys. It's the, little fancy drink that people like to show and like to talk about. But the truth is, it's just sweet and artificial and fluffy, and it ain't got no kick.
Well, okay. Drinks with Geoff Wilson. Long Island iced tea.
Ooh, a Long Island iced tea. Now that is a drink. That is a drink with a kick.
I've actually never had a Long Island iced tea. I know. I'm sorry. We're getting shocked feedback from the group here, but I know it's loaded.
It's not a Long Island iced tea is nothing but a college party excuse to throw a bunch of alcohols together to get everybody drunk really quick. There's nothing good about it. It doesn't it's literally a drink that combines vodka, rum, tequila, and gin, right? Is that what's in there's 4 alcohols.
Yes,
is that
we just
it?
got a thumbs up that's
Those
it.
are the 4 alcohols.
Those are the 4
and then
alcohols.
They put Coke and sweet and sour. That is a Long Island iced tea. None of those ingredients are meant to blend together in real life.
It sounds terrible.
Those are not, there's no elevated taste profile when it comes to drinking a Long Island iced tea. It is nothing but a bunch of things thrown into one glass for the purpose of getting you drunk. That's all it is. And therefore, it is the perfect analogy for Washington Commanders fans right now. Because if you are a fan of the Washington Commanders and how that team has played and their quarterback situation and their ownership situation, you better be drinking some Long Island iced teas because you got a whole bunch of crap all together in one glass. And you know what? You just need to get drunk to continue to be a fan of that team.
So as a side note, I'm really glad Charles, our head of production, has his soundproof headphones on, because he would have thrown something across the room at you. Oh man, he's gonna hear this and edit, and he is not gonna be happy with you. Oh, that is hilarious. All right, we got 2 more. Aperol Spritz.
The Aperol Spritz, that's the Cincinnati Bengals, because they're just trendy.
They're trendy.
They're trendy right now.
They're
like
trendy.
the Aperol Spritz today is what the Moscow Mule was a few years ago. And that the Aperol Spritz is now on the top of every cocktail menu. Every restaurant and bar, they've now got the Spritz drink. They're featuring Aperol. They got maybe a whole menu of different Spritz drinks. It's a trendy thing, just like the Bengals are the trendy team right now. Everyone likes Joe Burrow, Joe Cool. They're trendy. It's trendy to be a Bengals fan all of a sudden, just like Aperol Spritz.
Yeah, I can equate to that. I bought Aperol Spritz like ingredients because I was throwing a party. I was like, I figured people will probably drink this. Nobody drank it.
No one drank it?
Nobody drank it.
It's a good drink.
Maybe it's just one of those things that people
nice, refreshing drink.
Saying they support.
Maybe.
Or showing the support on Instagram, but not actually consuming.
Or maybe it's on its way out now. I don't know.
Oh, all right. Last one. The Mai Tai.
Oh, the Mai Tai.
The Mai Tai.
The Mai Tai is my favorite drink.
I know. That's why I saved it for last.
The Mai Tai is the San Francisco 49ers. Because the Mai Tai is such a delicate balance of ingredients to get it right. So many bars make the Mai Tai wrong. And if you get one ingredient in the Mai Tai wrong, the whole thing gets thrown off and it turns into this sweet, syrupy drink that it doesn't come together right. The San Francisco 49ers, they have so many excellent ingredients and they can't get the quarterback situation right.
They never get the drink right.
They never quite get it right. They're just slightly off. And you look at the 49ers this year and you're like, man, if you just had a quarterback who could stay healthy, you guys could have won the Super Bowl this year. That could have been the best team or the best drink there is, but that one ingredient, the quarterback's off. And if the quarterback's off, the whole drink is off. It falls apart. They get their brains beat out in the NFC Championship game. And you look and you can only go, that could have been so great. That could have been so great. Just like the perfect Mai Tai, but you screwed up the ingredients.
Oh, my Lord. Well, there you go. Folks, if you ever want to learn what the perfect Mai Tai is, please just reach out to Geoff Wilson at It's Geoff Wilson, because he'll let you know. Because you've been...
we'll talk about it.
I have never heard a man be so passionate about a Mai Tai in my life outside of you. I mean, you talk like it is a delicate piece of artwork that everyone in their life should experience.
As I said, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd, Kelly. I'm a
likes
nerd.
Mai Tais.
Mai Tais is one of the things.
Oh my Lord. Well, that was episode 4.
There you go. We're done. We're done. That was fun.
Yeah.
Appreciate everybody out there listening. And we'll be back next week.
Yeah, you can find us at The Geoff Wilson Show on YouTube. And it's Geoff Wilson everywhere else.
There you go. Take care, everybody.